You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is Gillian McKercher, and we're going to talk about her new film entitled Lucky Star. Welcome to the show, Gillian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Lucky Star had its world premiere at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and I live in Santa Barbara, and I absolutely love that film festival. How was the reaction to the film when you were here?
I had an amazing reaction, actually. First of all, the theaters were almost full, and that's just a dream for a filmmaker to be in a theater that has audience members that you can like feel the reaction. It's not just, you put it out into the world and then you don't hear back. And everyone was very engaged. Lots of movie lovers in Santa Barbara.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie town. It's definitely a movie town. So you had a great experience, and that's wonderful. That's great. But the theaters were almost full too. That's a sign for sure, because there's so many to choose from, so many good films. So it's nice when your film is one of those films for sure. So the audience knows. Why don't you give us a brief synopsis of what Lucky Star is all about?
Lucky Star is a family drama about a father who gets scammed and then resorts to gambling to make the money back in secret from his family. It takes place during a very cold Calgary winter, and it's a modern and complex character study of a modern Chinese Canadian family.
And I should say, in the introduction, I forgot to say that you are award-winning writer, director, producer. So,
Oh, thank you.
so you've worn many hats, putting together Lucky Star. So, how did this come to you? This idea? Because it really is a very interesting idea.
Well, I love to gossip. I can't deny if anyone just says something a little conspiratorial, I can't resist. I have to lean in. And my entire life, I feel like I've been hearing stories about strong women often who are talking about disappointing fathers or sons or uncles or cousins. And so Lucky Star was really me trying to make sense of these stories because what I observed is even though there might be a story of like, can you believe he did that? Um, there's often still a lot of love for that father. And in this Lucky Star, I chose a father. And so I was really curious by that tension between the father who disappoints, but the father who is also loved. So I was trying to understand who that person would be.
Yeah, and there is that wonderful duality. I think for all of us, there always is that duality between love and hate, or like or dislike.
Yeah, or rooting for them, judging them, hoping that they'll rise up to the occasion and be do the right thing, but also not being surprised when they do the sort of small thing. So lying, or in this film, going to gamble, play poker.
And there's a lot of lying in this film.
A lot of lying. And I think what I am also inspired by is just general human behavior. And I think that as humans, we always have an idea of what people should do. But at least in my observation, most people do the opposite. They do the thing to immediately preserve themselves in the moment, self-preservation, saving face. And so people are lying all the time, but I don't think that it means they're inherently morally corrupt. I think it's just a thing that we do um, to preserve the calm or preserve like order. But of course, our lies usually catch up to us and they explode, and that's where the gossip comes in. So there was a family story in my family that a great grandfather had gambled away an entire block of Calgary's Chinatown. Now, I don't know if that's true, and it happened a long time ago. I can't even verify it. But I thought about if I were to scale that idea to today, if somebody came to me and said, my dad just gambled away a property of ours, what would I think about them? So lots of lying, but also it seems truthful to present lying the way I did in the film.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. My great great grandfather had the patent to an innovative hammer, and
Okay.
he gambled it away. He lost it, and when he was gambling, and it was not a good thing, obviously. But so I related to the story on that level, knowing about that. But the main character, Lucky, great name, obviously, for him. He was lucky in many ways. He truly was. And yet, you go when you're watching this, you're going, why doesn't he just tell his wife what happened? That he got scammed. But then you go, it's the ego, and as you say, it's trying to keep the peace. But you go, like, if you just told her the truth in the beginning, then we wouldn't have a movie. But for sure.
Mhm.
Had that thought ever crossed your mind when you were writing this?
Absolutely. And that's another one. I wonder if I could have been more clear with the scam, but in my research, I learned that only about 20% of scams are actually reported to the authorities because people are so ashamed that they keep quiet. And they'll keep quiet for years unless they're forced really to admit that they did something that other people would say that seemed obvious. You shouldn't have been scammed. That's so you deserved it. You deserved to be scammed. That's actually the behavior that I notice is when people admit to being scammed, the first response from most of the public is like, well, they're an idiot. And so they sort of like earned, they deserved it. And so I felt like even though as an audience we feel like he should tell his wife, in reality, it's very, very rare that people actually do. The only time I've really seen people share it with their families if it's like, okay, I've lost literally everything. If it's a smaller amount of money, like in the film, it's something people will often swallow.
What I was amazed about in the film was how many people he was able to go to borrow money from, so he could try to make it back gambling. And that was interesting too, because everybody seemed to know that he had a gambling problem. And they all asked him, "Are you gambling?" And he, with some of them he was truthful, but not with everyone. So, is that realistic that so many people? I mean, he is a wonderful, endearing character, but I guess he was there to help other people, and he was always able to pay people back. And I think that made the difference. Is that what you felt when you were writing this?
Definitely. I think for those of us who have people who suffer from addiction or struggle with addiction in our lives, if you're with them for a long period of time, you always want them to be on the up, on the up. And part of that, I think, this is challenging, but it's not wanting to believe or see the signs when things are sliding because it does mean there's a problem, or it means recognizing your own complicity in enabling that person. And it's really hard. I think we all want to just avoid the problem. It's not until it gets too big and it explodes that people will hold back. And I think it takes a really strong person, and those people are rare to say, I know this pattern and I'm saying no. I really admire that in people, but it's just so hard to get there. So I think with Lucky, I was interested in him having been on a good streak for a long period of time. So he's accumulated, good favor and relationships with people. I like that he's resourceful, but sadly, we see him burn through all of that goodwill very quickly. And I was more interested in that than just saying he's a degenerate. He has no friends. He's hit rock bottom and he's redeemless. That just wasn't the story I was interested in.
No, and it's not that story, and I think that's what's so good because you're rooting for him throughout this whole, the film. You're rooting for him. That yes, let's hope he can make the money back and do what he needs to be doing. And there's genuine love between he and his wife in this film, despite the fact that they have been going through difficulties. They've been married a long time, uh, and over time, everybody grows and changes, every relationship, changes, but you can still see that there was love there for sure.
Yeah. I that was really to your earlier point, what really drew me to the story was just wanting to explore love in a family. And sometimes when you love what is the saying? The when you love something, let it go and see, it'll see what happens. I just think there's so much hardship and challenges in the world, and the film is, there are some hard things that happen, but I feel like what I could offer is showing love despite the hard times and not just showing like people going through tough times and then just like ragging on each other and it's miserable. Like there is some warmth, there is some beauty in their life.
There is, and there's no question, and that was beautiful the way that you showed that and expressed it in the film. We see so many that are, pressing and downtrodden, and there doesn't seem to be any hope. And I don't think any of us really want those movies. We have enough of that going on in our world, at this point in time. So to have a film, even though, and I don't want to give anything away, that there is love there, and he is an honorable man in many other ways. He's dishonorable in one way, but he's honorable in others. So I mean, so again, there's no black. It's life is not all black and not all white. It's a combination, probably of gray. Uh, but that's what you've done with this character. And your lead actor, who plays Lucky, tell us a little bit about him, his name, and a little bit about him and his background.
So Lucky is played by a Canadian actor called Terry Chen, who has been acting for a very long time. He's a very diverse actor. He's played lots of different roles, most notably from Almost Famous. He played the Rolling Stone editor, Ben Fong Torres, in that film. And he's played in lots of films since, from things like Snakes on a Plane to House of Cards to, most recently he was cast in Avatar and he's showing on Wild Cards right now. And I believe he just had a viral moment where in the Wild Cards he plays a bit of an uptight police officer or police commissioner, and he takes off his shirt and reveals his tattoos, which are real. And there's
Mario?
like tens of millions of, TikTok views of this, which is hilarious. But he's a very warm person and he really believes in mentoring and supporting new artists. So him and I were introduced through a development program via the Canadian Film Center and Netflix Development Accelerator. So he read the script and gave notes. And then eventually, when we got financing, he said, yeah, let's make it. And it was a nice coincidence that he's actually from the city that I shot the film in and am born and raised. So we're both from Calgary. But I didn't know that when I first met him. I didn't like go into Google and say Chinese actors who are good from Calgary. It just happened.
He's very good in this film. He really is. And he brings the right touch of, again, lovable, but then, kind of not a scoundrel. He's not a scoundrel, but just that dichotomy that he presents in the film is perfect. There's a tone that he has set, and it's the right tone for the film. It could have gone different directions, as you know, and you're the director, so you helped make sure that the tone was correct.
Yeah, I agree. He's very good. It was, yeah, we talked a lot about it where you do love him, and then sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, we didn't want him to be, we wanted him to be sometimes, despicable. One person actually described him as a trickster in our audience, and I thought I like that, where it's when I think of a trickster, you're kind of like them for being a trickster, but then you should know better. And so that was the Terry really understood that, and he was so brave to allow himself to be both lovable and a little hateable.
Exactly. So, his daughter in this film, their relationship is very interesting too. Let's talk a little bit more about that, how that character, how you wrote her and why, um, a little bit more about their relationship. And
Well, I knew that the father-daughter relationship, Lucky Grace, that was really, in many ways, the core of the film because she's very similar to him, even though she's very good at school. She's responsible. In many ways, she's the parent. He's the most honest with any character with his daughter. And I really loved this intimacy between them, this trust that they could be themselves with each other. And yet at the same time, the roles are reversed. And it's very challenging for her, as a child to be taking care of your parent and to be telling them, okay, yeah, let's go to the bank or I'll give you money, don't worry. I was really interested in that because I think it's easy to say to a child, okay, you should just stand up to them and walk away. But because they're your parent, it's so hard. Like they're like the authority figure in your life. And so I think what I was curious about was just seeing how that can change over time. The authority figure can actually become the child. So I just have seen that happen and in real life. And I thought Connie Mew, who plays Grace, did a great job. She just totally brought the love and understanding of her father. Like I would do anything for him. And I think in a different film, if he had abused this relationship more, we would see her, walk away from him. But I was interested in this preservation of love, which is there, where she's like, I'll do anything for you, which is very different than the mother. I feel like that's the contrast I was interested in. For the daughter, she's there for him, and the mom is like, okay, this might be the end.
There's a longer history and it's a different relationship.
Hmm.
It is. You can't divorce your children, but you can divorce.
Absolutely.
So, but you can become estranged from your children, no question about that. But there is that love, between her and her father, and you're right, they are more of the main characters of this film. So it's interesting. So how long did it take you to write this script?
Oh boy. I started writing this in January of 2019. I finished the draft later that year when I was at the Canadian Film Center. So I went there as a director resident. And a lot of things happened in between writing the script and then going to picture. So that was in 2023 that we went, in winter 2023. So that's about 4 years. I wasn't working on it all the time. I actually had a child my first child in between this period of time. And I remember when my son was born, I said, I'm going to be thinking about the script all the time, but I just don't want to look at it until I have more time to really think about it. But it takes a long time to get a movie made.
Yes, it does, and you're doing it during this pandemic time too, so I'm sure that factored into it. I'm fascinated. You have a degree in chemical engineering. Is that correct? And now,
That
how
is
do you
correct.
go from chemical engineering to becoming an award-winning filmmaker? How did that all transpire?
I was just, here's what happened. When I was in school, I was very, very strong in math and science. And I'm from Calgary, which is an oil and gas hub. We're sort of like a sister city to Houston, unofficially. And where I'm from, there are the arts exist here. Oil and gas is so dominant that it seemed totally impossible to work in a creative field, let alone be a filmmaker. And my family, I come from two parents who are geologists. Most of my extended family, they work in technical fields. So there wasn't anybody within an intimate relationship who could say this is what you do to become an artist. So I just did what I thought I had to do. And then it wasn't until I was in university that I realized I could do other things. And the first time I was really nurtured to be a filmmaker or have people say, okay, there's something here, was when I joined an artist run center called the Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers. So I started doing workshops there as just a hobby when I was doing my degree. But it wasn't until I met my now husband, but he's also a producer on Lucky Star, Guillaume Carlier. When I was working at my first oil and gas job, I met him and he was pursuing filmmaking full time. And it was through his connections, his network, and encouragement that I could see myself as a filmmaker. And then eventually, when I got let go from engineering, I was able to confidently, although it was still very hard, like transition into filmmaking through his network, which then became my network.
Amazing, though. That's an interesting transition. But isn't it nice to have those people around us that support us, particularly in the arts? It's such a hard road and hard profession to be in, especially today. I think it's gotten harder.
I well, I can't speak about if it's harder, but I couldn't agree with you more. In the arts, I think I think that if you're under the age of 30, okay, I'm being very general. If you're super young, I think you can do things pretty radical on your own. Like the power of the self and the fire and the ambition that a single individual can have is so powerful. But I don't think that can last forever. You burn out. And you do need people who can support you when you're making your work, but also can uplift your voice and champion your work and be your patron and um, connect you with other people who might be excited. Like in the arts, it's all about the community. And without your community, you're kind of left on your own. And that is, I think, pretty much impossible. So,
It is,
it's the broader art loving community.
yeah, as I said, it takes a village, as they say. Uh,
Hmm.
but, to make a movie, to make anything artistic, I think nowadays, unless you're just a solo artist. But are you still based in Calgary? Is that where you're based?
Yeah, I'm based here.
Based in Calgary. So, and it has now you're saying it has a fairly good arts community there?
Yeah, it's growing. It's a hub for film and TV. So, shows like The Last of Us and Fargo have shot here, or Billy the Kid, which is on MGM Plus. Lots of Western shows, but they're also, shows like Heartland, which have been on forever. So there is a real, the crews here are like world class. And I think with time, above the line creative roles, so like writers, directors, are being fostered here as well. And if it's honestly, it's still affordable to live here. So for myself, I'm not always in the center of things, but I can travel and I do travel quite often, but I can raise a family here. And that was really important for me. When I found out that I was pregnant, I just knew that I had to do it close to my family in a place where, I could not just only be a filmmaker, but I could put my son into like swimming lessons. So just trying to do both, have it all.
It's hard. It's hard. What are you working on right now? Are you working on another script?
I am working on my next feature film. I have to do a big revision of the script. It's about sex, secrets, and sisters. And I'm
Mhm.
also developing a lot of work through my production company, Kinosum. So producing for some other amazing writer directors and just trying to keep busy. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love it.
That's great. That's great. Where can people see Lucky Star?
Lucky Star is playing on video on demand, so you can watch it on Google and YouTube and I think Apple TV and Vudu. And I'd love to know what you think. You can follow us too on Instagram or on social media at Kinosum, Kinosum. And yeah, I mean, you can find our email on there. I'm just always curious when people reach out and tell us what they think.
That's wonderful. Well, people seek out Lucky Star. It is a lovely little film, and you will enjoy it. Uh, just to tell my listeners, today we are taping this show on the ninth anniversary of the Jan Price Show, premiering on iHeartRadio 9 years ago today. So thank you all for listening and supporting me in these past 9 years. Had a great night. Thank you, Gillian, for being my guest today.
Thank you so much and happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll have a much, I wish you much success with this film.
Thank
Take care.
you.
You're welcome. Bye bye.